Hello, I'm fine, thank you. So for today I will show my game against Lars Hauge from the match Ukraine against Norway. It was last game. Three previous games I already showed. So I hope everybody can hear me and can listen me. Can hear me and can see me. I mean, is that everything okay? Please confirm that everything is okay. Good, good. So I was black. It was game 4, and maybe it's better to flip the board. Just a moment. Yes, I can flip the board because I was black. So I was prepared against e4, but surprisingly, my opponent started with f4. Okay, not so big surprise because he's Dutch. Okay, he's Norwegian player, but he likes to play Dutch defense with black. For example, if d4, he likes to play f5. This is his main repertoire. So with f4, he wants to play something like Dutch defense, but with extra tempo. So I started to think, okay, e5, it's interesting from gambit, but I didn't play this. It's interesting line. Now e4 is king's gambit. If f takes e5, d6 is theory. E takes d6, bishop takes d6. Knight f3. And now black has choice. Two moves are possible. G5 is possible or knight f6. So, for example, Bent Larsen played knight f6 here because of this. Maybe it is the best. There is a famous game, Newman-Larsen. And this is interesting that Larsen played this game. It was correspondence game. So sometimes Bent Larsen also played correspondence game, and his game against Newman was correspondence. Okay, what compensations? Compensation is that better development, and White has some problem with his king. So, for example, d4 was played, castle played Larsen, and let me check. I have a book here of Bent Larsen. Just a moment, please, if I will find it. I cannot find him. Okay, but I remember that bishop g5 was played or something like this. So, but Larsen played. Where is this book? Okay. So I remember that in some moment Larsen played h6 and his opponent should take on f6, but it wasn't exactly here. So yes, I remember. Now h6 is dubious because takes and e4 is possible, but Larsen played rook e8. His opponent played queen d3. And Larsen played h6. And now Newman made a serious mistake. He played bishop h4, and after g5, bishop f2, knight e4. It's very unpleasant for white because knight takes f2 is threat, g4 in some moment is threat, bishop f5 is coming. So according to Bent Larsen, much better was to take on f6 after queen takes f6, e4. After bishop f5, knight bd2, and queen e7, for example, castle. Bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, queen takes e4, and this position, according to Bent Larsen, approximately equal. Maybe even it's slightly better for white after takes, and bishop c4, but okay. So it was game Newman-Larsen. Another theory is g5, of course, here. G5 is possible. After g5, white has choice. G3 is possible. G4, knight h4. For example, knight e7, d4, knight g6, and now white has choice between knight g2. It's one possibility. Another possibility is to take and play queen d3. Queen d3 is important because bishop g2 doesn't work. Rook takes h2 and bishop g3 coming. So queen d3 is correct, and there is a lot of theory. Black has compensation. But okay, so I didn't play it from Gambit. According to Larsen, he explained that he didn't want to play g5 because after d4, g4, knight e5 position is equal, and he wanted to play something more complicated. Well, so I started to think, and my choice was c5, quite a flexible move. So I provoke him to play e4, this line of Sicilian, which I played against Giri, and Giri answered d5, he takes d5, knight f6, after bishop b5 check, knight d7, knight c3, g6, and black has excellent compensation. This was my game against Giri. I lost with white. I will write. So everything is okay about sound, about view. I hope. Can somebody confirm? Time to time I need to check. Yeah, okay, good. So, but my opponent played knight f3, I played g6, and again, flexible move. So g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, knight c6, d6. And now I have choice. I don't understand. Rapid tournament with blitz with $10,000 or what? Yes, it's a good idea. Ola. Okay, so now I have a principal choice to play d5 or not play d5. So I played d5. Another possible line here is d6, of course, to prepare, for example, if castle, e5, it's possible, and then knight g7. It's totally different type of position. But I played d5, castle, knight f6, and now it's easy to see that we have Dutch defense on the board, but there is one tempi difference. So, for example, we can imagine this position. I mean, d4, f5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, castle, castle, c4, d6, knight c3. It's the same position, and now black has three main opportunities. Queen e8, knight c6 is possible, or c6. Also, Muzachuk sisters like to play e6 now. This idea to prepare queen e7. Okay, this is possible as well. Tournament from Romania with which Jobava won. Tournament from Romania which Jobava won, and there are 4 more. Aha. Is it online tournament on chess.com or Lichess, or is it live tournament? Which kind it is tournament? Is over the board. Rapid chess. So they are playing in Romania, right? Interesting. In which city? Mm, mm. Okay, I will check. Thanks for information. Bucharest. Okay. Okay, thanks for information. I didn't even hear about this tournament, unfortunately. Well, so this position, c6, e6, queen e8 is possible. Knight c6 is possible as well, and if d5, black has choice between knight a5 or knight e5 is possible as well. So, well, but now we can come back to my game. So, queen e1 played my opponent. I can add that many years ago I had the same position with white against Sergei Tivyakov, and I played knight c3 here. Tivyakov responded castle. d4 is possible, but after d4, okay, white has choice again between knight e4 or knight a4. Both looks like possible. This is even hard to understand which of this move is better, knight e4 or knight a4. Well, but Tivyakov didn't play d4, he played castle, I played e4, he took on e4, I took with pawn, he took on d1, rook takes d1, he played e5, and this endgame is approximately equal. So knight d5, I played e takes f4, knight f6, bishop f6, g takes f4, something like this. Okay, position is more or less equal, and game ended with draw. It's my game against Tivyakov. Right. Next 3 tournaments from this series would be classical. But when and where? Do you have information when and where? Okay, so queen e1. He played, obviously white wants to push e4. If, for example, if castle, e4 looks logical, it's promising play for white, so I decide to play d4. Now, if e4, I can take en passant. Knight a3 played my opponent. Of course, another logical plan here is just play a4 with castle, knight a3, and then knight c4 in some moment. But okay, knight a3 he played, castle, he played c4. Not only choice, c3, it's another logical idea here to prepare knight c2 and to make pressure against d4 pawn. If, for example, knight d5, bishop d2. And I remember I played this position many years ago. I was child, so my opponent played e5. I took on e5, he took, I played knight c2. It's good illustration of idea. He played bishop e6. And now main idea of white in action. So c4. Aha, 4/11 June. Okay, so c4. Thanks for information. I will check. I will write for myself. Do not forget it. It's important. Thanks a lot for. I will take a pen now. Târgu Mureș. Târgu Mureș, Romania. 4/11 June. 5,000 euro. Okay, good. So I played c4, he played knight e7, I played b4, he took the pawn, and now very important move, bishop f4. And white has clear advantage, because if bishop f4, rook takes f4, both of pawns are hanging. If bishop g7, queen takes b4, and black is losing material. So in such way I played in age 14 probably, or 13, something like this. I was a teenager, but I remember this idea till now. Okay, of course this line is not forcing, so after c3 black has no obligation to play knight b5. Immediately probably rook b8 is more precise, by the way. But okay, so my opponent played c4. It's also possible. I have understood this, that he wants knight c2. If bishop f4 was my preparation, okay, it was, but it wasn't my idea, because Alexander Chernin played the same with black. So he played queen e8 against Hernandez. So Hernandez was white, Chernin was black. So Hernandez played d5, knight a6, knight d4, bishop d7, and okay, so something like this. This, and c6, and then I don't remember exactly what white played, but on next move Chernin played knight c7, and then c5, b5, and bishop f5. So I was familiar with this idea, and I just repeated it with extra tempi. So I recommend to see game Hernandez Chernin. Hernandez Chernin. Okay, so let's continue. d4, knight a3, castle c4. So after c4, okay, I have understood that he wants to prepare knight c2 and b4, and I'm starting to play with this. Immediately a5 I don't want to play because white will have b5 square for his knight, so I played rook b8. Logical move, because I want to have b6 in some moment. Immediately b6 obvious is bad, because knight e5, bishop takes a8. I have no sufficient compensation for the exchange. Okay, this is very typical trick, but okay, now white can even f takes e5 to win a piece. Yes, it's even more convincing. So b6 is just terrible blunder, but knight h5 instead of rook b8 is proposition. But okay, I'm not sure that knight on h5 is so strong. For example, if knight c2, e5, yes, takes, for example, takes, b4. So white has very active play in queen's flank, and bishop g2 is very active. Okay, knight on h5. If somewhere knight takes g3, but I'm not sure that black can create a real attack in this position. But I want to show you another important motif with b6 knight e5. It was a game Jonathan Spielman was white, Yasser Seiravan was black. I am not sure e4 or d4, sorry. What do you mean e4 or d4? What do you mean? I don't understand your questions. E4 or d4. Okay, so I want to show you this example. So knight f3, this is game Spielman Seiravan. Knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, queen b3, c5. Now a3, bishop a5, g3, knight c6, bishop g2, castle, and Seiravan played the d5. d6 is very logical choice as well. If d3, h6 to prevent bishop g5 is approximately equal game. But Seiravan played d5 immediately. Spearman answered d3. Yes, d5 is double-edged. Okay, it's also possible to play h6, for example, now. But Seiravan played d4, knight a4, b6. And it was a tactical mistake. According to calculation of Seiravan, he, of course, he have seen motif knight e5 and bishop takes e8. Okay, it not wins, but so what was idea? So knight e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e8, and bishop d7, bishop is hanging, bishop g2, queen e8, and there is illusion that black is winning because white is losing his knight. But there is important trick which Seiravan misses. It's queen e2. And if bishop takes a4, b4, black is losing one of his bishops. So this is nice trick. So after yes, bishop is trapped. So Seiravan didn't play bishop d7 and knight. He played knight h5, something like this. But here there is no enough compensation. So this was a bad idea. d4 and b6. So d4. I will write which game it was. B1N or 2N, okay, I don't remember. Maybe just one, Spielman, Seiravan. Or W, okay, I don't remember how to write, okay, Seiravan, but Jonathan Spielman against Yasen Seiravan. Still strict, yes. easy to miss. So queen e2, it's queen a2, very nice take. Okay, so let's come back. So knight a3. So rook b4, rook b8. My idea to have b6 in some moment. So knight c2. He wants to play b4. Well, I played a5. My idea is simple. If he plays a3, I will block him. a4, not allow b4. So he changed his plan, played h3, so he's preparing some activities in king's flank. Okay, so b6, g4, bishop b7. So f5 is possible now, queen h4 also was possible, but I don't think that white has strong attack here. For example, if f5, okay, I can even take, I think. If g takes f5, what is this? Of course, white has plan queen h4, knight g5, something like this, but or bishop f4 in some moment. Okay, so probably it was interesting and logical one. Okay, but after f5, I can also play something like queen c7 here, not allow bishop f4. Queen h4 is possible, but at the moment white has no direct threats, so black can do something. For example, knight b4 is possible. Takes, and just play this position. If knight g5, I have h6. Okay, maybe white can take. If this pawn takes, knight g5 is threat, rook takes f6. And also bishop f4 is coming. This looks like pretty dangerous for me. But, I'm not sure, although this is so bad, because rook f8, for example. I have f8 square for my king, so maybe position is still playable for me. Okay, so f5 was possible, queen h4 was possible immediately, but my opponent played bishop d2. Yes, you are right. So many differences between, but anyway, I like this trick. So queen a2 is easy to miss. So I decide to show for my spectators. So bishop d2 played my opponent, and okay, I decide to play knight d7. Okay, my idea is to prepare e5, and if queen h4, I'm ready to exchange queens and. Not afraid any attack. So e5 is possible or e6 is possible. If knight g5, h6. So if exchange queens, okay, my king not in danger anymore. f5 immediately is possible, but now if f5, my plan h5. When h5? In which moment? Here h5 you want. Maybe it's possible, but okay, this move is from my king, so queen h4 is possible. Exactly. I'm not sure is it. And then knight g5, it looks like dangerous. I don't like h5. Okay, knight d7 seems illogical. Now, if f5, my plan was just take on f5. Or also possible knight e5, of course. So exchange not knight c2, but knight f3, attacking piece, and also bishops. And after exchange two bishops, white king will be weak as well. Also here, I think if he played instead bishop d2, I can consider same plan. For example, play this simply. and if bishop f4 to play knight e5. But okay, now it's less convincing because queen g3 may be possible, so I have some tactical problems. So f5 probably was more interesting. So bishop d2, he lost tempo, and now knight d7. After f5, I prepared for knight ce5. If queen h4, I prepared for e6 or e5, also possible. Yes, and he played e4, so he wants to activate his knight. Question is, when did you decide chess your full-time profession? But what you mean my full-time profession? So I didn't understand your idea of your questions. Well, so he played e4, d takes e3. I should take, and bishop c3.
Увага! Відбій повітряної тривоги.
Just a moment. Yes.
Увага! Відбій повітряної тривоги.
So after bishop c3, he is exchanging my bishop. I cannot save my pawn e3, but okay. White has no serious attack, and I have no reason to worry about my position. I played knight b4. Maybe I have other possibilities. For example, now I see I'm looking at the board, and e5 looks very interesting move for me. As my main job. What can I say? So I never consider. Okay, this big question if chess is my job. Okay, so okay. It can be considered like job because I earn money with chess, of course. But okay, but chess is surely it's not. It is not job for me like the most important part of chess in my life. So chess is like my passion, like it's normal living process for me. So okay, night before I played e5 seems maybe even more logical. I don't know why I didn't play e5 even, because if he takes this pawn, I can take with comfortable position, or with another knight to attack pawn d3, or if f5. Probably I'm trying to remember which line I consider. Probably f5 I was afraid, but now, so something like this maybe I have considered. But now I see that knight b4 also looks like very promising, and white has problem with his d3 pawn as well. So e5 probably was objectively better than knight b4, which I played. So e5 was strongest. So knight b4, he took, queen takes e3. Okay, this position is bishop h6 after f5. Bishop h6. Okay, after bishop h6, he can just take on e3. But why not knight b4? Don't see any reason. So logical move. I'm attack knight, I attack pawn d3, and now my bishop b7 is active, e4 is coming in some moment. So okay, maybe bishop h6 is possible, but knight b4 seems me like much more logical. Okay, so I played knight b4 here, probably it was, so e5 looks better. So he took, and this position. Now, okay, what can I say about this position? I have a little bit better pawn structure at the moment, but okay, my knight on d7 is passive somehow. Of course, would be much better to have a knight somewhere on e6, to take on f3, to play knight d4 and have positionally winning. Uh, yes, okay, much better position. But at the moment, knight still on d7, white is prepared to play d4 in some moments. So, okay, position is double-edged, probably approximately equal. So I played knight f6. Idea is simple. I am not allow him to play d4 immediately. Of course, he can play something like rook fd1, but okay. So after rook fd1, to prepare d4, I mean, but okay, so queen c7, maybe d4, maybe e6 even possible. Not allow d5. Then rook fd8, something like this. Okay, he played a3, another logical move, because he wants to activate his rook. I should take, because if not take, my pawn on b4 will be weak somehow. So he took queen d6. My plan is simple, so I want to play rook d8 and create some pressure against d3 pawn, or occupy d4 pawn after exchange bishop against knight. The gift button do not work. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not expert in technical functions. So how it works? Probably you can ask somebody else who is more active in Twitch and knows very well different functions. Next tournament, I have no idea yet, so, but I have no concrete plan. So you propose b5 here. Maybe it's possible, but not sure, because d3 pawn is defended, so white can just take, and after, for example, takes, bishop takes f3, and if bishop takes f3, rook takes b2, but it is losing because g5 is coming, and if my knight, if knight d7, queen d4 check, if I choose another square for knight, for example, this queen e5 is coming, so this idea doesn't work, and also if queen d2, g takes f6 with check, and after e takes f6, queen f2 simply. So d5 looks okay. Maybe now I have something else, but at least I cannot take back my pawn. For example, if rook c8, queen e5 is possible with threat g5. So b5 is hardly good idea. Queen d6 looks logical because I'm preparing for rook d8. He played rook e1. Of course, knight e5 was active and logical. Takes, and played this position. Then white can play rook a1, rook a7. Position is approximately equal. I can play knight d7, exchange knights, approximately equal position, according to me. But he played rook e1, and now I started to consider it. E6 looks very natural, but after e6 now he can play knight e5 and have the same. And I decide that it will be better for me to exchange this bishop and not allow knight e5. So I took on f3, e6. Important that I don't allow him to play d4. So position is under control. If, for example, rook a7, I expected something like this. Okay, I can play rook d8. If queen takes e6, I can take on f4 or take on on d3, something like this. So I wasn't afraid so much. He played queen e5 immediately. Okay, so rook fd8. Now he played g5. I'm not sure this is a reasonable choice. Maybe for white was better to play something like king g2, for example, or rook b3, for example, not allow b5. Because after this, my knight is less active than with his pawn on g5, because I have no f5 square for my knight. But he played g5, probably positionally it is not the best decision, and now after takes, of course, knight g8 is coming. Probably he missed this move. Queen c3 hardly possible, because I can just take on f4, or even queen d4 is possible, but okay, I'm just taking the pawn and rook d4 is coming, so queen c3 looks like a mistake. But g5 dubious move, so rook b3 more logical was, in my opinion. g5, now knight g8, good move, because now I have clear plan, so my knight wants to go to f5. Rook a7 at the moment, maybe rook takes d3 is possible. I'm not sure. Okay, if not, I have at least king f8 to prepare knight e7, but probably rook d3 is possible. I'm not sure that he can realize weakness of f7 square. But okay, it's not clear. So for example, he can try rook f1, and now bishop e4 is threat, or bishop somewhere else. For example, if rook d4, bishop c6 is possible. If rook f8, bishop e8, so it's not so pleasant. So probably he can try it. But okay, king f8 at least looks very logical to prepare knight e7. But here, okay, maybe rook d8 is possible, and rook f8, but this is quite passive, because my knight has no square e7, and all of my pieces is passive. Yes, I remember you. I just played you one game in Lichess. Well, so after rook a7, probably the best choice king f8, and next move knight e7. And for example, if now rook a1, I can take on d3 already. And at least I have, if he tries rook c7 and rook a7, I can at least play this and make draw if I want. Okay, but he played bishop e4, probably rook a7 was more precise. h6, knight e7 is possible immediately, but I decide that to open h line is useful for me. So I played h6. Important that rook f1 and rook a7 doesn't work, because I can just play rook f8. Knight h6 is less convincing, because rook f6, and white has some attacking chance. Rook takes g6 is threat, so probably king h8 is only move, but it's a little bit strange. But more easy to play rook f8 and to prepare knight h6, knight f5. So he played h4. If g takes f6, of course, I will take with knight, and knight f5 is coming. So h4, and now takes, knight e7, and now my knight is strong, and f5 square is ready for him. So rook a7 he played, knight f5, rook c7. He wants to play rook a1 and rook a7. Of course, I can play rook c8 if I want to exchange rook or make draw with move repetition, something like this. But okay, I started my counterattack. So rook, I want just to play rook h5 and take the pawn. He played rook a1, he ignored this threat. Of course, rook e2 was possible if rook h5, rook g2, but probably my opponent decides that this is too passive. So it's probably a reasonable choice. Not give me this pawn. Okay, for example, I have this. If okay, rook b7, white has his trumps as well. So my pawn is attacked. It's double-edged position. Okay, he played rook a1, allowed me to play it. Thank you for subscription. When this game was played, okay, it was okay 1 week ago, something like this. So it's very fresh game. Thank you for everybody who is making subscription. Okay, so rook e1 he played, he gave me a pawn, and rook h5, of course, rook g5, white rooks are active, but, well, I have extra pawn, and knight h6. f7 is protected, and e5 is attacked. So only idea of white is to take my pawn on b6 and try to do something in queen's flank. So he's playing this. I can exchange rook, but okay, not so easy to calculate this line. Okay, it's possible to consider, for example, takes, knight g4 check, king e2, knight takes e5, rook takes b6, f5. So anyway, it looks promising for me. Rook takes e6 is not possible because I'm just taking my knight is protected. If bishop goes somewhere, for example, bishop a8, I can play rook g3 with the idea to take on d3, and it looks like the game is something like weak. Opening. Okay. So I have excellent chances. So probably I could just exchange rooks and enjoy this pawn up. But I played rook h8, so probably my idea was to organize mating attack. So if rook takes b6, knight g4, somewhere rook h2 is coming, so probably this was my idea. But the problem that white has no obligation to take on b6 immediately. So probably rook takes b7 was stronger than rook h8 objectively. So king f3 he played. It's much better than rook takes b6. Now I cannot move with my knight because f7 pawn still attack it, so I took with my rook, and after rook takes b6, okay, so my rook on e5 is a little bit misplaced. For example, if I play king f5, king f4 is coming. If I play knight f5, king f4 is coming, and this is bad for me because my rook is attacked, and if king f6, rook takes f7, and king takes e5, and white is even winning here. So knight f5 is bad. It wasn't so difficult to see it, so I played king f6, not allowed this, but now rook b7. Again, I cannot move with my knight because f7 pawn is hanging. So I played rook h5, rook c7, rook b8. Counter attack against b2 pawn. Rook b7, because no draw. Pawn up, playing for win. Played knight f5. Looks very logical, but okay, maybe other moves is possible as well. I mean, something like rook h3 check is possible. King g2, rook e3, b4, takes. Now Knight f5, c5. Okay, white has some chances for draw. Okay, knight f5 is logical anyway, because I have two ideas, knight d4 check or knight d6. For example, if he plays b4, I can consider knight d6. Go to the rook endgame with excellent chances to win. But he played rook c7, yes. And now I played knight d4. And another very logical idea was knight d6 to play and attack his bishop. But I already was short of time, so it was difficult to decide knight d6 or knight f5. Both of these moves looks like very tempting for me. So I played knight d4. King g3. If I remember that I expected something like king e3, but now I can play knight b3, block his pawn b2, and to prepare rook h3 check. But maybe rook h3 immediately is possible, because if king d2, now of course not knight b3 because king c3, but I have check and white cannot go king c3 because the mate. So. Okay, but king g3 he played. King g3 is better choice for him than king e3, because now my better than what? Knight f5? Knight f5 better than king f6. Knight f5. Probably better than rook h3. I don't know. Okay, so knight f5 looks logical. And okay, now big question: knight d6 or knight d4? Probably knight d6 objectively was better, but I'm not pretty sure about this. So knight d4. Check king g3, and now I have a little bit problem to realize my extra pawn, because c5 is weakness and f7 is weakness as well. If knight b3, rook b7, so I played rook e5, but rook on e5 not so active. But okay, my plan is to prepare knight f5, knight d6 somewhere, or g5 to push. Although g5 it's double-edged decision. Sometimes my rook on e5 need more space. But okay, so he played rook b7. Knight f5 check I played. King f4 I played knight d6. Okay, so let's see this position. Surely I have choice, but looks like white has idea to play b4. C takes b4, rook takes b4. No, I'm not using engine. So I'm using my eyes and my head for analyze. So before and c takes b4, rook takes b4 looks like white idea, and then to have passed pawn c and try to realize it to create chances for survival. Of course, white is playing for draw because pawn up is important. But knight f5, so I played knight d6. G5 was possible as well, but I don't know, probably king f3. Although it's interesting, for example, I can consider g4 here. Because if he takes, knight d6 is coming, then I will take on e4 with obviously winning position. So if king f4, now I don't know. So knight d6 is interesting. or even g3 is interesting. G3 idea is if he takes, if he takes, I have knight e3 or knight h4, and then to take the bishop. But I'm not totally sure that this is winning. For example, if this king d6, if g2, he will take and take on c5, and I have only one pawn on e6, so very likely this is draw. But okay, after king f4, I can consider knight d6, and this looks like more serious try. So rook is attacked. So if, for example, rook d7, I can just take and play g3. I think it should be winning for black because if, for example, rook d3, I have rook g5. Not g2, g2 rook g3. It's mistaken. I'm losing my pawn. Um, Also, probably even here I have excellent winning chances after rook h4, but okay, it's not clear. King e3, if king e5, rook g5 is coming, but more easy. I can play, instead of g2, I can play rook g5, and my idea, if he is taking the pawn, I am just taking, and if king g3, king e5, this pawn endgame looks like winning for black, and e5 doesn't work as well because king f5, and I'm just taking the pawn. This is winning. Okay. So g5 was quite interesting choice. King f3, it's totally forced because king g4 lost immediately. So king f3, g4. So king take g4 lost. So king f4, king f4, and now knight d6. Important move. So, but okay, maybe rook c7 white can play, but after rook c7. Now the problem that after takes g3, white can just take, and if rook takes e4, rook takes c5. So maybe rook c7 is knight d6 instead of g5. Okay, it's more safe, but maybe g5 more aggressive, and probably if there is concrete way to win, it's possible to realize it, but I don't know if it's really winning. So rook g5 is possible here, of course, to prepare g3, but king g3, and not so clear how to win, because king e5 is not possible. My pawn c5 is hanging, and it's not clear how I can make progress in this position. So after g5, king f3, if g4, king f4. So this is correct method for white to defend this position. King f4 is correct. So knight d6 and rook c7, not rook d7, but rook c7, and now at least I cannot see clear win for black. Also, who knows, for example, rook g5, king g3, maybe now I can play king g7 maybe, or knight takes e4, d takes e4, king g6 also possible. But anyway, it's not totally convincing way to win. Or maybe also this is possible. With idea knight g7, knight h5 to prepare. Yes, this I like. For example, d7, knight g7. Yes, excellent winning chances. But okay, it's not easy. So during the game, I have seen this idea g5, g4, but I wasn't totally sure that it works. So I decide that knight d6 is more safe and easy, but it's not clear. Rook c7 he plays. So if now to play g5 will be same variation. I mean g5, king f3, g4, king f4, if rook g5, king g3. And now again I can play knight e8, for example, with good winning chances. But I didn't see idea knight e8 at all, so I took on e4. Not sure that it was the best choice, but I played this. Of course, black has other moves. For example, even rook h5 is totally possible idea. Activate my rook, bishop f3, rook f5. Well, might still have some chances for draw. So I took on e4, d takes e4, played rook h5. Need to activate my rook. Okay, g5. Now he has king f3. If g4, king f4 is coming, and this position, I don't know. Or rook g5 I can try, but king g3, and this rook endgame. King g6 or king g7 I should play. But not sure is it. For example, king g6, rook c6 is possible. Rook takes e4. In which moment rook takes e4? Drawish. Okay, maybe drawish, but I still pawn up. If king h5, rook c7 also. Maybe this. Okay, it's not clear. Pawn up is important. For example, if rook c7, f5. White cannot take on c5 because f4. So if take, I can probably take even with rook, who knows, or maybe take with pawn. Okay, it's anyway not clear. But so I played rook h1, king g3, and I don't know, is necessary. So b3 it was possible, for example. I don't know why he played king g3. But after b3 check probably is unpleasant. And if king e3, rook also. If king f4, also g5, I have intermediate check, and now it should be winning. Something this is winning. So he played king g3, and I played king e5. So I exchange the pawns. Please go back couple of moves. Okay, which what you from which moment you want to discuss? Please tell me number of move. Knight e8 move. Knight e8 move. Knight e8. Knight e8. Yes, knight e8. Knight e8. Okay. So exchange, sacrifice exchange. Where? In this position instead of knight e8, where rook takes bishop, in which moment? Knight e8 here, I consider. When rook was on e5, so here rook was on e5, so king f4. What is your proposition? Or later? Okay, rook now on e5. So in which moment you want to take rook takes e4? Knight d6, okay, I played knight d6, rook c7, and what is your proposition? Aha, g5, king f3, g4, king f4. No, yes, if knight e8, rook takes e7, but my proposition wasn't to play knight e8 immediately. I proposed that knight e8 after rook g5. Yes, now of course knight e8, it's rook takes f7 is coming. But rook g5 was my proposition, and only now. But now also I can consider knight f5 like idea. If bishop f5, e takes f5, and white cannot take on c5 at the moment because f4 is coming. And interesting. If rook c6, for example, I can go by king somewhere. I don't know, maybe even this. My idea of king f4, I have g3. Here rook takes e4. Where rook takes e4? Here rook takes e4. No. Okay, so knight f5 is interesting. Takes. King f4, g3 always. Rook c6, king g7. And I have threat f4, king takes f4, g3. For example, white is playing this, I have this, and g3, and now I am winning. So if white has any possibility, g5, king g6 instead of rook h5. Okay, we will consider, but maybe this was a good possibility, which I missed. Because what white can do, it's not so clear. Yes, it looks like okay, rook c6 probably the best, king g7, but okay, maybe white can play something like this, not allow f4 and g3, because now it doesn't work. After g3, white just take and rook a1 is coming. So this idea, but okay, after rook a6, I can do something else, I hope. Rook e4 and knight c4. Okay, I don't think that this is a very serious attempt for to play for a win. But now, no, anyway, black has excellent chances. Rook h5, for example, is possible to consider. But rook h5, king f4, so white still have some chances for draw. d4 is possible, but after d4 I will have passed pawn as well. Of course, here it's not obvious moment. Maybe king e7 is stronger to have knight closed. Okay, so it was possible, but I played rook h5, and I played king e5, decide to exchange pawns, although, of course, I have several alternatives. White has no threats at the moment, so I can consider even king g7 and then king f8, but okay. So I decide play this, rook takes f7, I played king takes e4. I remember I was very short of time. This is not obvious moment. For example, king d4 looks like quite serious alternative here. But not sure if this is winning after rook f6, e5, rook takes g6. So black has positional advantage, but only 2 pawns on the board. So I took here. Rook takes e4 and knight takes c4. No, really? I don't think that. So I played. Just a moment. Rook takes e4 and knight takes c4, but okay. I don't believe that I have winning chances after rook takes c5, so it's easy draw. Even if I will take on b2, I can have big problem with my knight. But even with normal knight, it's drawish position. So no, rook takes e4, it's not a good idea. Okay, so I took, he played rook f6, and now again I have choice, many tempting ideas. So I played rook g5 check. Not sure. Maybe, for example, but logical, by the way. Okay, I played rook g5. It's important that he cannot play king f2 because rook f5, so king h4. But now I played rook g1. I don't know why. Okay, I know because it was time trouble. I have no time to calculate. Maybe rook e5 was also interesting idea. But maybe even rook e5 immediately was logical. After rook f6, I could play immediately rook e5, and after rook takes, I can play king somewhere d3 or d4, and important that he has no square g3 for his rook. For example, king d3, b3 also, king c3, now king f4 is coming. If rook e1, rook g3 check. Also rook g5 is possible. Okay, so it's not easy. Okay, rook g5 is logical because now king on h4, it's good for me. But okay, maybe now rook e5, and after rook takes g6, I can play something interesting. So king d3 or king d4, what is better? Difficult to say. Maybe this is better. Yes, rook g4, rook e4 is losing. Yes, now this is losing, so c4 pawn is attacked. If I will take, it should be winning. So if b3, now I can try rook e3. It looks like winning for black. At least according to my intuition, because white king is too far from the queen's flank. So maybe rook e5 was stronger. But I played rook g1, rook takes e6, king d4. Again, not clear, maybe king d3 it's possible, but it's difficult to understand what is more precise. So king d4, pawn is attacked, b3. But now if I play king c3, he has rook c6 or rook e5. If I play rook b1, he has king f5. In which moment? King f5. When king f5. Here king no, here king f5. Okay, rook c6. Simply, I'm just losing the pawn. Rook g4. And rook takes c4. So king f5. It's interesting idea probably, but okay. It's question if it's really winning. For example, yes, king f5 is. I didn't see this idea during the game, but the question. So this. I'm not sure this is winning endgame. For example, king g2, and white wants to play b4. Immediately b4 was not possible, of course, because rook c3 check. But after king g2, b4 is threat, and what I can do. So if white will exchange pawns b2 against c5, it would be dead draw. Again, English opening is king e4 now, but king e4 b4 is coming. Maybe if before you have rook c2 and c4, probably yes, it's good winning chances. But if king e4, white can just take on g6, and I'm not sure that I can win this. For example, rook c2, king f1, rook takes b2. Looks like draw, but. Not sure, complicated. Because if king e1, king d3, it's possible. With the idea king c2, I'm not sure that this is draw. Maybe this is so. Maybe not king e1 immediately. Maybe rook g3, but after rook g3, rook d2 is coming, and then rook d3, and no, this is draw. Okay, so king f5 was interesting, but I didn't see this idea during the game, so I played king d4. Rook d6, where rook d6? Here rook d6. Yes, rook d6 is good. No, yes, this is draw. But why it's draw? King e3 is coming, sorry. If rook c6, rook c2, no, it's rook c6, rook c2 simply. Not clear, this is draw. Okay, it's easy to check with Nalimov table base or another 7 pieces table base, but okay. So I'm trying to understand. Okay, so g5 I played, g4 I played. Okay, I didn't have a lot of time, so I played by intuition. Now I played rook b1. He played rook b3, and okay, so he played rook b6. If he takes, rook takes b3, king f2. This was possible, and if king takes c4, king e2, or king e1. If king e2, I have king c3. Maybe this is winning, because white king cannot allow, cannot reach c1 square. Okay, so he played rook b6, rook b2. Immediately king c3 doesn't work because rook b5 is coming and I'm losing c5 pawn. So I played rook b2. But frankly speaking, I don't know what was my idea after rook b5 now. So it looks like dead draw already. Because if g2, king h2 is coming, it looks like I already lost all my winning chances. So after rook b5, it's just draw. Yes, so easy. So he wants to take. My king cannot move because pawn c5. After g2, king h2. And, this is draw already. So I played bad this endgame, but because king e3, rook takes c5, king f2, rook f5 checks. So after rook b5 is dead draw. But he took on g3 and now king c3. He gave me a chance. He played king f3. Now the problem for white is that after rook b5 I can take and he cannot take on c5 because king d4, king b4. I'm winning the rook. So now it's too late. So he played king f3, but maybe it was better to start with rook c6. Attack the pawn. So if king b4, he can play rook b6 check. For example, if this, if king a3, now he has rook b5. After rook takes b2, king f2, this is draw. So rook c6. So I need to take, and now he has king f2, important move, and this looks like draw. My pawn is attacked, so I need to take on c4, but now king e2. King e1 is worse because I can cut king rook d3, and this is winning. But king e2, it's draw because now after rook d3, rook takes c5. It's coming. If not rook d3, white has king d1. For example, this king d1, this is theoretical draw. So again, after rook c6 was draw. But he played king f3, and now rook takes. So now he has problems that knight is. That king is in bad place. So in f2 it's much better, and I'm utilizing this king d3. So not allow king e2. If king f2, I have rook b2 check. If king e1, but okay. Is it winning? Okay, for example, we can consider this. Maybe it is draw anyway. No, king f2 looks like correct idea because if I'm taking king e2, if rook b2, okay, king e1. What is my progress? Looks like draw. Rook b1, king f2, for example. I should take king e2. It's draw. So king f2 is draw. So position was drawish, but he played rook c8, and now rook c3 I played. And now it's no easy draw anymore. And I'm not sure that white still have draw. Rook d6 was okay. King f2 is rook d6. Rook d6 now may be possible as well, although. But no, rook d6 is dubious because I can take and play king c3. So about this I'm not agree that this is draw. At least looks dangerous. But okay, king f2 was correct. King f2 is easy draw. But after rook c8, rook c3 I played, and now it's difficult because if king f2 I have check, and if this I can check and take with rook. King c3, rook d6. What you mean? So what you mean? In which moment you want to? Rook d, king c3, rook d3. Okay. Which number of move you want? After king c3, here king c3. Rook d3 check you want or what? Rook d3, okay. Yes, maybe this is draw, but so king c2, rook d2, king b1, rook d1 check. King if king a2, you have rook c1, and this is draw. Yes, yes, this is draw. If king b2, yes, rook d2 check. Yes, it looks like draw. But if king c3, rook d. King b4. King b4, you can just go with rook d8. And it looks like draw. Yes, it's drawish. You are right. This also was draw. But king f2 anyway more simple. He played rook d8 and now king c2. And now but now it's the same. Not the same because not the same. Because my rook on c3 is much better than on b3. So not the same because my rook is on c4. Yes, and I have idea to defend my king against check with rook. So I can play rook c2 or rook c1 after check. So if, for example, rook d1, I can play this, and white has no rook d2 because rook c2. So this looks like already winning. Rook d8, king b2 I played anyway. So this looks like already losing. For example, if he played king d3, rook c3, king d1, c4, and now now it's a theoretical winning position because white king on the long side must be king on. For example, if image that king on a1, white, black king on c3, this is draw because rook h8. But king is in long side, rook in short side. This is draw. This is winning for black, so white has no chances anymore. So he played rook c8. Okay, this was possible, but king c3, and for example, if this rook this is theoretically winning position. So after rook c8, c3, it's simple because this is winning because I can just build bridge and win the game. Okay, so this game I wanted to show you today. So my report about match against match Norway Ukraine is finished. So probably in my next video I will continue match against match Steinitz between Anderson some topic which my spectators wants to see, you can write me. Okay, if there are any wishes about material. Okay, so you can think, write me. At the moment, I will go to sleep and relax. Goodbye and good night or good day. Who has a day? So if you are in United States somewhere, this is still date. So thanks for your attention. Bye. Just a moment. Okay, okay. Krasilko, Turkey. Yes, Krasilko was okay. Bye.